Hello, everyone. I'm here for one of my stories. This is Lindsay Dunn. And today we have back in the Zoom room Darryl Mansel and Harrison Martin to talk about Stranger Things Season 4, Part 2. Before we begin, just a reminder that we have done a little over an hour long spoiler full discussion of part 1. So if you missed that, please consider going back and listening to that, because we are going to be building on the thoughts we already shared there. Also, reminder, we will be going into spoilers in this recap. So if you haven't watched part 2, what are you doing watching us? You need to go to Netflix and watch part 2 so that you can participate better in this discussion and know what's going on. So please watch that and then come back and tune back in. So where we left off in part 1 was that what is so funny?
Nothing. Keep going.
Do not slow my roll.
I apologize.
So Nancy was stuck in the Upside Down with Vecna, with Steve desperately trying to wake her, looking on horror. We had 11 finally having the breakthrough where she remembers the things that Dr. Brenner and Dr. Owens wanted her to remember, with the fact that the first gate was opened because of her and her fight with Henry/Vecna/1. Jonathan, Mike, Argyle, and Will are trying to get to 11 to see if they can help, and Hopper and Joyce finally had their reunion in Russia. And now they're trying to get back home so they can help their kids. So based on part 1, here are some things just to recap what this group wanted to see. We wanted to see the full group reunited and not split up into parties. We were wondering if Will perhaps had some powers and whether that would be built onto Steve perhaps singing to Nancy. That was my hope. That didn't happen. Better character arcs for Will, Jonathan, and Mike. Also, maybe a bring back of 8. And some of that we got, and some of that we absolutely didn't. Let's talk about the divided structure. We were really hoping that, or at least I was, that there would be sort of this bringing back together of the group. You had these three teams. It's actually more of 4 almost, that were doing different things, and that sort of continued in part 2. It didn't really change until the very, very end. So I'm curious how you guys felt that structure worked for you, if you liked it or if you thought it was annoying, or what were your thoughts about the different plot points and how that worked?
For me, I enjoyed it. It's pretty much like been separated as teams every season after season 1. The only difference is this time they were actually in different physical locations. You got the California/Nevada team, you got the Russia team. But before, they always had like the older kids and the younger kids. You had Dustin and your shirt character, Steve. There we go, Steve Harrington. By the way, yes, I did notice your shirt, your babysitter shirt. But yeah, so them being in different teams and locations didn't really bother me at all. Although, like you said, I did want them to come back together before the very end. I thought we were going to get like an Avengers Endgame moment, so to speak. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm okay with the split. It's kind of like the nature of ensemble storytelling, right? Like at some point you gotta have the people kind of split off into side quests, I guess, for lack of a better, like this is our side quest, this is our side quest, and the writers find ways to kind of tie it all in together. If we don't finish ours and they can't finish theirs, type thing. So I'm fine with that, but yeah, I was ready for them to finally come back all together, and we get that, albeit in a cheated form at the very end of the season. But it is nice to have everybody under one roof, as it were, so to speak, once again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that this season I was thinking about season 2 and how you need, like, each person has a part to play in the grand scheme of things, although they aren't always aware of each other's parts. And you kind of wonder, to a certain extent. Obviously, they need, as the writers, they need to make sure we get to touch base with everybody. But, 11, sort of everybody had something to do. So there was the main thing with Max and the group trying to burn him while the bats were gone. But then Hopper and Joyce are also fighting from Russia. And then you have 11 trying to help Max in her own way. But nobody factored in any of those things happening. It happened to align. So it's almost like you need all of these people to help, to participate, to make it happen as a whole. But you do get these interruptions where if you're more invested in one thing, like, oh, well, here we are and we're with Max and we're in the Max memories, but oh no, we have to see what's going on with Hopper. I don't know. It kind of takes me out of it for a minute, and I'm like, oh, I guess we need to know what's happening to them. But it sort of bugged me a little bit. But
when it's edited right, I think it when it cuts away, you're like, no, get back. I want to see what's happening. But then when that cuts away, you're like, no, I want to see what that was though. When the editing is done right, it always makes you regret leaving whatever that scene in the moment is.
Yeah, sometimes the way they do these, I don't know, montages or whatever, where they're building up a crescendo with all of the storylines, and those parts can be fun too. But all right, well, let's talk. I want to touch base on some things we didn't get into as much in part one because they weren't exactly, I don't know, relevant. There wasn't much to say. So I do want to touch base on those. The first one would be Dr. Brenner. And how do we feel about his character? I think where I'm coming at from that question is in part one, when we first meet him, he has sort of this in all intents and purposes, besides the Demogorgon, Dr. Brenner is one of the antagonists. We see him, what we know about him is he's keeping these kids locked up and is trying to exploit them for his own personal gain. And it seems just really malicious and selfish. But in this season, there's more dimension added to him. So I wanted just to discuss that. And did your view of his character change in this season? And if so, how did it change?
Dr. Brenner?
Fluffy hair guy.
Matthew Modine.
Yeah.
Papa.
Yeah, I'm trying to, like, the dude's a complex cat to really nail down. Like, I'm not sure how I feel about him. Really, like, yeah, he starts off bad, obviously, and then we kind of find out more, I think, in season 2 of, like, what happens with the mom and all that. You see just how awful this cat is, but then here in this new season, it's like he's trying to, like, help Elegant. So it's like, should I be rooting for this guy, even though he's obviously kind of a piece of shit? Like, he is legit maybe one of the most complex characters in the show, because you're not really sure, or at least I'm not really quite sure how to feel about him. Like, is he one of those dudes that does, like, all the horrible grimy stuff for an eventual good purpose? Like, that's its own weird, like, anti-hero type role. I don't know. I'm very conflicted on that character. But whenever he showed up on the screen, I'm like, yeah, just give me that perfect hair.
This hair is actually, it's got to be a wig, right?
It is definitely, yeah. And I just stare at that on the screen all the time. I have no idea what words are coming out of his mouth. I'm just looking at that hair.
Yeah, for one, I was surprised he was coming back. Because in season 1, he was attacked by the Demogorgon, but you don't get to see him actually die. You just assume, oh, well, it's just a Demogorgon. Why would it not kill him? I have a theory on that after this season as to why. But then, of course, what was it in season 2? Was it 2 or 3 where 8 was there? 2.
Season 2.
And 8 does the illusion of him, and she says, he's still alive. Would you like to know where he is? And then in this season, of course, he comes back and he's helping her regain her powers, helping her unlock her hidden memories. And yeah, and I even put it in my review, I don't see him as a like necessarily like evil person, maybe a little immoral, but he's doing it for like the sake of science. He's like, do the ends justify the means? Him raising these children, helping them like improve their power so that, as you would assume, the United States could have some kind of defense against threats, whether from another dimension or like Russia, for instance. And like the scene, the very first scene, the opening scene where he's with that kid and he's helping him with his powers, and he's telling the kid, like, don't strain yourself. Just, if you can't get it, just let it go. Like, he's being really nice to him, even though they're in this like type of labs like facility. And I do feel like he just kind of, when he found out basically like how powerful 11 was, he's like, okay, I need to do more. I need to push her more. And that's why he came off as just like this really bad guy. So, and I mean, you want to say, yes, he was bad to Henry/Vecna/1, but come on, that kid was evil from the get-go. He killed his whole family.
That's a good point. That's a pretty good point there, yeah.
Yeah, I think this, like you said, one of you said you were surprised he brought him back. I was like, well, what else do we need to know about Dr. Brenner? But a lot of how we feel about him, I think, is through Eleven's eyes, and how she gets to see, as she sees more about him and how she feels about him. That's kind of how we feel about him too, to an extent. And so in season 1, all we saw was him pushing her and punishing her when she didn't do what he wanted. But then in this season, you see him, the way he talks to her, he's very tender. He's always very gentle with her. And we saw him basically trying to protect her. He was shot trying to help her get away. Now, he was trying to help her get away so he could get something out of her. But he releases her from the collar at the end thing. And you can tell she, her feelings about him are very conflicted. He was her caregiver growing up. And so for her, that was what she knew was what a father was based on him. And so I feel like they did give him dimension through really good writing. They made it a little more nebulous, how to see him. And Vecna ends up saying towards the end, 11 says, "You're the monster, Papa." She tells him that he is. And then she kind of tries to use that thought to sway Vecna into not being evil and saying, right. I know Papa hurt you. Looks kind of the same way she did with Billy. She was empathetic with Billy, and that helped weaken him for the moment. And she kind of tried to use that on Vecna, but he ends up just saying Dr. Brenner was just a man, and he was a man who wanted power, and so he leeches on to greatness. And so there was several things that were used, several speeches, I felt like, that helped kind of shape how we might view Brenner differently than in season 1.
And there's also that scene when 11 was younger and like the other kids like beat her up. And like Dr. Brenner, like she didn't rat on them, but Dr. Brenner knew something happened. He came in, he was like, okay, who did this? Like he disciplined them for doing something that was wrong. He didn't like tell them good job, and like he wasn't encouraging that type of behavior. So like I said, just doing it for the sake of science, and got a little immoral along the way, like all brilliant scientists do.
But before we knew the whole thing about Vecna being 1, also they had cast out on that because he said, he basically made 11 feel like Papa's not going to protect you. Like he made it seem like he was going to protect you so that they'll try to kill you, and he's not going to stop it. And so all throughout that there was like a flip flop of like, well, is that true? Is he trying to set up 11? And he was torturing 1 with the electric, the
rod
shock or whatever. Yeah. So it was, I think they really did a good job making it more complex. Let's talk about Will. Part 1, we we were talking about his haircut, the bowl, the bowl cut. We talked about how he was always the kid that needs to be rescued, and we wanted something else done with him. And they didn't do a lot with him, but they did give him some good character beats in this part too, especially, his heart to heart with Mike.
That a lot of people painting Mike in a bad light after that conversation with Will. I love what they did with Will in this little back quarter of a season, or whatever you want to call it. They gave him that really great speech. And even though Mike wasn't paying attention to my man sobbing in the back seat, Jonathan was, which leads to yet another great moment. But between Will and Jonathan, and thanks to that, my stock in Jonathan rose big time due to that scene. I think they kind of sidelined him for this season because he is kind of the focus of the first two seasons, right? Like, he is the kid they have to save in season one. He is the kid they have to save in season two. And as more characters have come to the forefront, more new characters, he's been the one that's kind of got the reduction. But now that, whatever's happening in Hawkins, he's got the weird tingles on the back of his neck. I think he's about to jump back to the head of the pack in this final season. So I think it's just a holding pattern for Will.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of what they're doing with Will. I mean, I do like the speech he gave to Mike, I thought was really good. And the talk he had with Jonathan, I thought was really good. It really helped solidify those two as like really close brothers, even though he said in his speech, like, we've been like kind of drifting apart a little bit, but just know that I'm always here for you when you need to talk. But I feel like they should have gave him powers, but we didn't see him have any powers. But I think they are dancing around the fact of, like, is Will gay or not? Like, that speech you could have definitely taken it as like Will was talking about himself and not 11, because we all know that 11 never said anything about him about doing a picture. And the whole scene with him in part one where the girl tries to play footsies with him and he pulls his foot away. And I think, like, and there were even hints like previous seasons. And I think this was the season, like, if they were going to do that, just do it and don't like dance around it, kind of like teasing fans about like, oh, is he this, is he that? Like, oh, you'll never know. Or like, if it's supposed to be like he's a character who's figuring himself out in that light, the writers can be free to say that. They can say, we think this character is figuring himself out. But like in interviews, even now, they say, when people ask that question about Will, they say, well, those are the questions you should be asking. We're not sure. It's like, how are you not sure? You're the writers. It's like,
they have confirmed that it will be directly addressed in this final season.
Yes. And that's the thing. And I hope, like, in season 5, like, at this point for me, I think if he comes out and he says, yes, I'm gay, I feel like it's not going to be as big of a thing. They've taken too long. And it's kind of like, okay, we kind of already knew that. You've ruined the moment. So, like, I think it'd be more shocking at this point if like it comes up and he's like, oh no, I'm not. I'm asexual, or I just want to play Dungeons and Dragons. Or I think at this point that's probably what they should go with. But yeah, I want him to be more in the front. Like when he touched the back of his neck, that was my hope that, okay, yes, Will's coming back to the front. He still has some connection with the Upside Down, and they're going to explore that more next season.
Yeah, I'm in the small minority that's rooting for asexual Will.
No, I don't think they're going to say, they might give him that label, but yeah, I don't think people really talked that way back in the 80s. I might be wrong. Like, I don't think that people said, I'm asexual, but Harrison, I feel like you teased this reveal about Will maybe having powers. And I think, I don't know, for me, that was the more interesting thing that I was getting. And I feel like they did sort of, Will had the great speech in the van, which, they did mention in part one that when 11 does her opening monologue about life in California, she actually says she doesn't know what the picture is, that he won't show anybody. So yes, we do know that wasn't true at all. But I did think it was interesting that, Will's never really shown that much emotional intelligence. He does about his relationship to the Demogorgon and the Upside Down, but the way he kind of broke things down for Mike. So I thought that was really good. And it also showed a certain element of selflessness on his part, because he saw Mike was hurting, and so his thought was, I'm going to comfort my friend, even though it hurts me on some level to do this, and I'm not able to maybe express to you how I feel, so I can use this as a vessel. But I feel like that Will did have several points in the season, in this part, where he kind of comes to the front a little bit, because when 11 is in the bathtub, Will is like, okay, is there anything? She's like, we're in this memory. Do you see Max? No, I don't. And he's like, well, is there anything unusual or that doesn't fit? So he's, because of his experience with the Upside Down, he's the one that he knew what to look for, and he was kind of helping in that way. And then he tells Mike at the end, Vecna's hurting. So it did make me feel like you were onto something, Harrison, and that in season 5, Will is going to probably play a pretty major role in the season, and maybe his character will be more interesting to you then.
Yes, after he goes to the barber and he comes out and he's a better man.
If only we could have that barbershop scene.
They need to put it in. Somebody needs to say, hey, let's take you to the barber. Your mom needs to stop cutting your hair. And
Listen,
then bam.
Geniuses on Twitter letting people know that he needs to be taken to the barbershop.
But do you guys think about, did that make you think more about that theory, Harrison? All those little clues in the part, maybe? Or were you just like...
The part where they showed Henry draw the picture of what he imagines himself as, which parallels exactly what Will drew in season 1. And the fact that it all started with Will, that does make me think there's some connection there, and that he might have some ability, which is why he's awkward the way he is. He just doesn't know how to express it yet. And it may not even, if it happens, it may not even happen to like the very last episode of the final season, where it's like, oh, like that's why. I don't know. I just feel like they put that connection in there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. That was interesting, the parallels with the drawing. So, and he had one of the best lines for him, I thought, was when he tells Mike, when you feel different, you feel like a mistake. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was, I don't know, that just really hit me in the soft place. So you already mentioned Jonathan getting to be a good brother. Yeah, Jonathan's another person that we don't, now that he's away from Nancy, they don't really know what to do with his character. So I'm not sure really if we need to say much about Jonathan.
The most underserved character in the entire season. But I will say, like I said, that I like the fact that they kept cutting to him in the driver's seat during that little speech of him fully invested in the conversation that those two are having back there, and listening to his brother's hurts, basically, and then that leading to them having that great conversation. It's really the only thing, besides bringing Argyle into the gang, it's the only thing that Jonathan really did of any kind of worth this season. And that it really does feel like they didn't have anything to do with him. That's kind of why he was high on my list of possible characters to get killed this past season, because his story is pretty much over. It's still interesting to see where him and Nancy go at the very end. He still hasn't confessed that he's not getting that acceptance letter that everyone seems to be waiting on. That's the perfect time to just go ahead and let the cat out of the bag, but he decides to hold on to that bit of information. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But from that end, I'm still more interested in seeing how Nancy reacts to it than anything Jonathan has going on.
Mm-hmm. He did know how to bribe Mini Argyle.
Yes, that was a pretty funny scene.
Yeah, it was. That was kind of his shining moment for these last 2 episodes. Is everything going on in the pizzeria there?
And then I think the only other thing with Jonathan was he has a moment with Nancy, and she's like, "I'm glad you weren't here."
Yeah.
I'm like, "I bet you were,
My
Nancy."
bad. It hurts, pain.
And he looks at her like,
I feel like at this point, like the fandom kind of wants Nancy and Jonathan to break up and her to go back to Steve, because it's really interesting. Like, especially in season 1, like Steve grew as a person, and you would have thought, okay, she's going to end up with Jonathan, but at the end of season 1, she's still with Steve because he's become a better person. And then in season 2 is when she gets with Jonathan. And then they're kind of doing their detective thing in season 3, and now they're separated in season 4, and she's kind of getting feelings for Steve again. And I think that is where she should end up. I think Jonathan should kind of like end up doing his own thing where he's still like in service with the group. Like, I don't want them to stop being friends, but I feel like he's someone I can see becoming like the next Hopper. Like, he's probably not going to go to college, but he still wants to protect people. I can see him becoming like a cop after whatever this time skip is, and that's his new MO. So, yeah.
We'll go with that.
well, he's been a caregiver for, I think his life has been looking out for his mom and looking out for his brother.
Mm-hmm.
So he hasn't gotten that chance to really figure out who he is. I still think he needs a sabbatical, go off in the desert and just really have that.
Smoke all the kush.
And
there's also he also still has his talents of being a photographer as well that he can fall back on. So, even though he just works for, whatever the local Hawkins newspaper is, then that's still an option that is available to him, or just being an investigative journalist. I like the pairing of him and Nancy as a investigative pair, but that we get that road for much longer.
Mm-hmm. With Argyle, we all appreciate his character. I did enjoy how they go to Surfer Boy Pizza #2, and you had this scene where like, we're getting the salty tub ready, but Argyle is making a pizza. That must be done at the same time as we're getting ready to have this mind fight. I kept thinking, what is Argyle doing? Why is he making a pizza? But you do need snacks before you have a mind fight, apparently.
So I looked at the notes and I saw that you brought this up, and I was thinking about it, and it makes 100% sense. Because did Jonathan work at the pizza shop too, or was it just Argyle?
That's a good question.
Jonathan did too, or maybe they were just friends.
Either way, like, they've traversed halfway across the country.
Mm-hmm.
On whose dime? Who had the money in this group? How are they filling up the tank? So any bit of free food that's guaranteed to be free, and from a person who knows how to make it, man, yeah, that made perfect sense to me. They've probably been stretching their dollar. They're all probably tired and hungry. Why not throw some food together?
Maybe Jonathan will have the money, because one of the things I was thinking about the entire season is, how did Joyce, as a single mom working as a telemarketer, have $40,000 just to try to get Hopper from Russia, and she could just pull it out in cash? I was like, I thought Steve was the only rich one in the show, but apparently Joyce has a great savings account or whatever.
I feel like the Paul Reiser character probably set them up quite well financially.
That would make it like, hey, everybody, keep quiet. Check your bank account.
I wish someone would tell me that.
Didn't Murray provide some of the funds too, with, since he's able to import all this expensive Russian vodka?
Maybe.
I'm pretty sure Murray lives cheap as hell anyway, so if he makes any kind of money, he's probably just bankrolling most of it.
That's a good point, Darryl. I guess maybe they haven't really had a lot to eat. Maybe they had some chips at the mini mart and that's it. But thanks for making me see the practical details. How do you guys feel about the whole pineapple on pizza?
No, ma'am.
Okay, try before you denied.
Are you saying you're a pineapple on pizza fan?
I do.
Where is the
like it
leave
on
button?
occasion.
Where is the leave button?
Argyle's stock dropped a little bit when he said that, man. I was like, man, just when you think you know somebody, that's when they hurt you the most.
They had to bring it up. That's made by the algorithm, that because it's a big fight that happens on social media all the time. So you have to bring those things into the show so people can have a good laugh about it. Hopper and Joyce. Darryl, did you get your fill on Hopper and Joyce this time, or was it enough for you? That you wanted the one moment of reunion and you got that, and now in this time there was making out even, and there was this really cute what are you thinking about? He's thinking about the lasagna and breadsticks. Did that help you get your fill of Hopper and Joyce, or would you have liked to see more from these characters?
I obviously I would like to see more, but if we don't get more, then I'm very happy with what we got. And I still will fight and scrape till the end of the earth for them to get their one real date at the end of all this at the Italian spot, provided it's still, a building right now. It's just great to see them get to interact and all that kind of good stuff. But yeah, if we get more, great. If we don't, also great. Satisfied with what we got. It's such a good relationship with great chemistry between the actors.
That should have been the end credit scene, right? Like the end credit scene is them eating at Enzo's. If this was an MCU movie, that's what you would have, is him eating a breadstick and Joyce looking on adoringly at it.
Yes, I think yes, that would be a great end scene for this show. If we're not going to get a snowball dance again, because I think they've kind of grown out the snowball dances, give me that last moment of peace between characters.
I was wondering that too. I was like, is there going to be like an end credit scene for this? Because this is the perfect season to do it. But of course, they didn't have anything. But yeah, I was wondering, like, so what are they going to do with Joyce and Hopper next season? Because Hopper is dead to everybody else in Hawkins. He's a hero. He died in the mall fire or whatever. So I'm like, are they just going to bring him back and be like, he was on a secret mission, Hopper's still alive? Or is he going to also have to be in hiding? So like, how are they going to actually manage their relationship if he's not supposed to be there? Like, how's the government going to be like, he's not actually dead, so to speak? If they plan, because the entire next season is supposed to pretty much be in Hawkins. So I want to know how they're going to fix that, so to speak.
Very good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, and his second in command has now become the local sheriff, and so there might be a power fight, which Hopper will win, of course. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they had, those two were cute. I mean, they had their matching jackets and they were kissing, even though Hopper admitted he was eating maggots. I mean, that's some true love right there.
I did feel very bad for them that their love-making scene was interrupted. I was like, oh, I mean, he's been in Russia all this time. Here it comes, and then bam. I was like, oh, I feel so bad for him.
He also had been crawling through the sewer, so I'm not sure if I really...
That means nothing.
I was viscerally thinking about what he must smell like, and I'm like, okay.
They all smell awful.
Yeah, they're nose blind at this point.
Yeah.
The only other kind of interesting thing I thought with Hopper was he had this opportunity to fight a Demogorgon with a sword. That was interesting. This sort of brought out the old school weapons. And the other thing is, it was interesting because when they come back to the prison, and there's this door, right? And they can hear the noise coming to the door, and they're like, "What's in there? Is it another Demogorgon?" And you open the door, and there's this smaller looking Demogorgon that's been chained up. And I was thinking, is that a baby Demogorgon? It almost seemed like Demogorgons in different phases of creation, because they had some with tails and all this, like the tadpole Demogorgon. So it was a little confusing what they were doing back there. But for a moment, I thought they were going to do the trope where, like, oh, it's a baby Demogorgon, and the mama Demogorgon is mad that the baby Demogorgon is chained up. So, but no.
Yeah. I think they already did that trope. That was
season
season 2, where Dustin was raising the baby Demogorgon. And that's when you find out, like, they actually have phases of life, from the little polywog things to like the Dema dogs and then the full-grown Demogorgon. So still don't really know where they come from, but I think they've already did that trope, and yeah, they were just doing experiments on a younger one that, and apparently it was cut open and still alive. It was a little horrific to see,
disconcerting.
But, yeah. Back to your mention of Hopper and that sword. That is who I want as the main character for season 5. I need the first poster they release of Hopper. He needs to have that sword in his back, or on his back or in his hand or something, because I need to see him just killing all sorts of monsters next season with a sword in his hand.
It's great that they got the actual prop, the actual Conan the Barbarian sword, which is what that is. Nice. Someone pointed out that, hey, that looks a lot like and the Duffers are like, no, it doesn't look like it is. That is Arnold Schwarzenegger's Conan the Barbarian sword. So it's yet another one of those 80s references that they very quietly just snuck right in there for if it's one of those if you know type situations. Because he picked it up and I was like, why does that look familiar? I don't know. I'm not seeing it. Maybe it's me. But yeah, it is the Conan the Barbarian sword, but it's now the Hopper sword.
So it sounds like Harrison, you're gunning for maybe Hopper not going back to the job of sheriff, but just becoming, a renegade person that's operating a sword.
Well, I'm happy if I just don't know how they're going to do it. Like, because he's supposed to be dead. Like, if he's back, he comes back and says, I want to be sheriff again. And he's like, sure, I'll step down. And he's like, I'm keeping the sword, though. So he's like this badass sheriff with a sword and a gun in a almost post-apocalyptic Hawkins. I'm definitely fine with that. But yeah, he can be sheriff. He has to keep the sword. That is a must, because that would make a great Funko Pop, and I can add it to my collection.
There it is. That's the real reason right there. I would, if they do keep with the Hopper is dead thing, I would not be too upset if he just ended up working with whatever organization it is that Paul Reiser and that other federal agent was working with. Like, just have him work with them, and go ahead and go on. And then Hopper went on to have many adventures with his sword and Paul Reiser.
P.S.
Yes, yeah. Just give us that. Just give us that Richard Dreyfuss narration about who did what at the end.
So now we are going to turn our attention to mostly Hawkins, and I wanted to talk about the Eddie hot wiring this RV. That I thought that was really great scene, and I'm glad they did that, because you had this moment where they get the car started and Dustin yells, "Drive!" And I told you guys I watched all seasons before this started, and I noticed anytime that people have to do a quick getaway, the characters tend to yell, "Drive, Joyce, drive!" And it's like, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but if the harder, when you yell really loud, it makes the car go faster. If it won't start. That seems to be the belief that the characters have. So that is the secret.
I think it's this person needs to be kicked into gear, not the car. The person driving the car needs to be kicked into gear, and that drive is really what snaps into it. I like that Eddie's the one that hot wires, because it's like our first impression is, this guy's kind of a dick, and then you see under the layers, and you're like, this kid's got a heart of gold. But then he pulls out the wires and starts hard. And he's like, a kid with a heart of gold with a little bit of rascal in him still.
Yeah, I think I like that aspect about him too. Like you said, you first meet him, he's this leader of the D&D crew. He also sells drugs, apparently. When you find out, like, he's just a sweet guy, been held back a couple of times. He grew up in like a rough home, had to be taken care of by his uncle. But like seeing him do that, and then that's like, I was like, he has all these skills. This is why Eddie's gonna stay around. And but yeah, it was a very funny scene. And like you said, when you yell at somebody, you kick them into gear. So it's not that the yelling makes the car go faster. Your nervous system makes your leg push that pedal even harder. So that's what makes you drive faster.
This one was a little more subtle, but we did have Steve jumping into the driver's seat. So it's not like Steve wasn't getting up and going already. It just seems to be a funny thing. Like when you have an old car and you're trying to get it started, the people all yell as if that's going to be, I don't know, if that was me, I would be getting pissed off. People were yelling drive. I would be like, I'm trying. It was interesting that they had that speech where Eddie says, when all the other dads were teaching their kids how to fish, my old man was teaching me how to hotwire a car. So you're right. He had the capacity to become criminal all along, but he didn't necessarily use it because he says, I didn't want to become like my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So
Good point.
And I was watching we were all watching the show at different schedules. And I remember at a certain point, I see a post from Darryl somewhere saying, I really don't like these heart-to-heart moments. Why was that your reaction, Darryl? I thought that was cute.
It's one thing that Stranger Things does so well is tropes, right? They're great at setting up a trope and subverting it, and they're also great at setting up a trope and then just giving it to you, which makes the setting of the trope like, oh, what are they going to do with this? Are they going to play it straight? Are they going to zig where they zag? And that's like just the common heart to heart before the character dies interaction. And there's so many of those all throughout these last 2 episodes. Steve's talk with Nancy about, I always dreamed I would blah, 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 blah. And like, oh boy, here we go. Or like even Jonathan's talk with Will, like, hey, you can always come to me. I'm your brother. Like all those are always the speech you hear 15 minutes before somebody gets clapped out. And it doesn't really happen at all. A lot of setup and you're like, oh, is this their any scene that they put up after the character dies? But yeah, I was fearful for everyone because almost everybody had one of those meaningful, good character pre-death interactions. But we just never got any of the deaths, luckily, or yet.
Mm-hmm. We had also like Lucas with Max and Dustin and Eddie and all these cute heart-to-hearts. I did have this sense of dread as I was watching it because of the whole, 5 characters will die. And
you saw that. I saw that post too. So I was like, so who are the 5? I'm waiting the whole time. I'm like, okay, when is it going to start? When are we getting the first death? Like, who are the 5 going to be? And my heart was like, oh, it was and I was up till like 3 a.m. watching it. So it was like dark in the whole house. And I'm just sitting there like, man, when am I going to get teary eyed? So
what did who said that? Did Netflix actually, or the Duffers confirm that there'd be 5, or was some guy like word on the street?
It was like the rumor was that the Duffer brothers said there would be 5 deaths. That was the post that came out. And because of that, as I watched, and then you have the scene in the second episode 9, where Nancy says, okay, we're going to go over the plan one more time. And they're like, phase 1 is this and phase 2. And she says, nobody goes forward and nobody changes the plan, basically. And you're like, it's not going to, that it's not going to go as they planned. Something's not going to go right. And so it just had you feeling uncomfortable and uncertain about what was going to happen to everybody. And you were just upset the whole time you're watching it.
Mm-hmm. I actually did end up counting, and it wasn't 5 people, surprisingly. So,
well, there was more than 5 altogether, just not.
If you count what happened to Hawkins, yes, there was more than 5. But in terms of characters that we see go, it was not 5.
Yeah, you ended up counting. I think you ended up coming up with 4, Harrison.
3.5, I think, huh?
3.5. 3.5.
Well, you got what? Eddie and Brenner.
Yeah, you got Eddie, you got Dr. Brenner, you got Jason, and then you got Max. Then Max is snatched back. So 3.5.
That's the half. That's the half for me because I think Max is going to be Brenner.
I didn't see a lot of those coming. Like Eddie, I spent the entire volume 1 being like, this guy's going to eat it. he's becoming too likable. He's a new character. He's going to eat it. And then when he made it out of volume 1, I was like, I don't think anybody's going to eat it this season. They just want us to feel that way. And he's an older character. We got Robin a couple seasons ago, and it's like this is it. This like they're going to build it up so that the older kids now have a full group as well. But then when he like cuts the little rope and goes back out, I was like, oh well.
There goes
gone.
Eddie. Yep,
he's gone. And then with Max, I'm sitting there watching that whole scene, and I'm like, okay, Eleven's fighting Vecna. She's gonna get saved. As soon as that first bone snapped, I was like, oh snap, we're doing this. I paused it. I stopped. And I said, are we really doing this right now? Are they doing this to me? And then of course they subverted that because she did get saved, and then she goes anyway, and then all hell breaks loose. And that's when you get Jason, which totally caught me off guard. And I just felt really bad for him, even though he's like an antagonist. I was like, he didn't deserve to go like that.
Yeah, he did.
And Brenner, I was like, pow, pow. Okay, that's he's finally gone. Not that I hated Brenner or anything, but it's kind of like, okay, that's kind of expected. It's not important to me that he didn't make it. So
yeah, it was like Brenner, they didn't have much left to do with that character, really. He got Eleven's powers back. He's good. And Jason, they had to go ahead and clear that board too, so we could all be prepped for the one villain left in season 5.
Although they didn't
really
show that Brenner died. I mean, I'm assuming he did, but all that happened was he got shot several times and then he just flops in his back like, so
that wasn't a normal gun. It wasn't like he got shot like a little 42 or something.
That was a high caliber sniper rifle that took him out of the game. Yeah, I think we can go ahead and put a stamp on that one.
Okay. So I do want to touch on Jason, even though I'm with you. I did not like Jason, but I thought the way they wrote his character towards the end was good. So the plan was that Nancy, Robin, and Steve were going to help drop off the camper. Then they were walking through the woods to get back to the Creel house. Erica signals Max and Lucas. Max baits Vecna. Dustin and Eddie draw the demo bats away. And then Steve, Robin, and Nancy flambe Vecna is how the plan was supposed to go.
Solid plan.
One of the factors that interrupted this plan was Jason. And he definitely put a stop to things. He shows up and he's trying to boss Lucas around and make him wake up Max because he feels that she's possibly in danger the same way Chrissy was. But I really liked when he's questioning Lucas, and he says, he's like, this is what you did to Chrissy. And he says, no, Chrissy needed help. She was seeing things and she went to get drugs. She went to get drugs from Eddie. And he ends up saying, no, I know you're lying, because if Chrissy needed help, she would have asked me. And I thought that was really authentic character building, because when you're upset about things, it does a lot of times happen that you're not upset. Like he's saying he's mad at Eddie, but this is really about him, and it casts doubt on his relationship with Chrissy. And so there was sort of this weakness of his that it made him question what he believed to be true about how great their relationship was. And so there was sort of a jealousy, the fact that why would she go to this guy? And so it must be because he's bad or he's evil. And he had he put this malicious stamp on him. So that gave Jason a level of vulnerability there that they allowed him to have, that I thought worked well for, I know you're not saying exactly like you felt, well, you said he did feel sorry for Harrison, but it worked for you that you kind of saw things from his perspective for the moment.
Yeah, like for me with Jason, like his whole ordeal throughout this season was that his girlfriend died. and
Mhm.
he didn't know like what happened. He wanted justice for that, and he's basically like Steve from season 1, where he's not even as bad as Steve. Like Steve was a jerk in season 1. Jason wasn't really a jerk. He was just like wanting to know what happened to his girlfriend. He was heading down this wrong path, like inciting a mob, so to speak. And I don't think he ever got that instance of like redemption where like in season 1 you had Steve, like he went to apologize, and that's when the Demogorgon attacked, and he finds out everything that's going on that's weird. You kind of get that moment in season 3 with Billy, where he ends up like stopping the little flesh monster and saving everybody, and he's redeemed before he dies. But Jason is kind of just knocked out, and then a portal opens that he's lying across, and it splits him in half. Like if he got to see some kind of like monster, or if he saw like the supernatural stuff that was going on, and he was kind of like, oh, you guys were telling the truth, and then like Vecna killed him, then it would have been like, okay, that is more understandable for me. It just kind of felt like, bam, you're dead, and he screams. I'm like, ooh, that. I mean, I feel bad for you, but it's kind of like, that did he have to go like that? So I guess I just want like a little bit of redemption for the guy. I like so.
Didn't something show up in part 1? Oh, I guess his friend ended up, because I was thinking, well, didn't he see something in part 1? But
yeah,
he saw his friend rise up, and he thought
but he still thought like
Eddie did.
The only other person was there. He thought Eddie was doing it. It was something about them with the game, whereas he didn't actually see a monster. Like Steve actually saw the Demogorgon starting to attack them. So I think if he got to see Vecna or got to see a Demogorgon, he would have been like, oh, it clearly can't be you because there's a monster right here. Or maybe he would have been like, now you're summoning the monsters. Who knows? He is definitely your, like, I guess, Christian foil to some of the characters. He even quotes that Bible verse when he's rallying up the town. So yeah, maybe he wouldn't have been turned. Who knows? So
well, at least we didn't have to sit through any more Jason speeches, because there was a few too many Jason speeches in part 1 where you can see anytime he gave a speech to his team, he gives a speech, later to the same team and then to the townspeople. So I was just, please, let's not have any more Jason speeches. So we didn't have to endure any of that.
And I was actually expecting, because they ended like he gives that whole speech to the town and they rally together and they're going, and you see a couple of them in the gun shop, but then that's it. You don't really see any more of that. I thought there was going to be like a whole mob going around the town looking for these kids.
The dude walking his dog was the one that found him out. He was the first person to leave that school, whatever, where he incites the whole thing. And I think,
but I know what you mean, Harrison. You mean a bigger, like a mob or something to show up.
Yeah, you just need that one radical to throw the wrench in the system.
Hey, what's that little black girl doing?
Let's talk about sort of the biggest things to happen, which would be Max, Eddie, and 11. Let's start with Eddie, because we all like Eddie. I want to know how you guys feel about his path. One of the questions that I am wrestling with about it is, to a certain level, for me, Eddie's death feels senseless. And maybe you can share your thinking about it and help bring me around. But there was this moment where they had gotten back to they had finished the guitar solo, the epic guitar solo, which was awesome.
I've listened to that on repeat. I don't know how many times. It is epic, yes.
And had you heard it before, Harrison? I haven't listened to it in a while, so I should probably listen to it in full.
I had not. I think that's actually my first time listening to that, and I just thought, I like rock, especially when it's used in like movies and TV. You have the characters rocking out, and just him on top of the RV, like, this is for you, Chrissy, and he just starts hammering away, and I'm like, this is pretty. It's epic. It's a sense. The epicness of that scene was great, and that added to just more of why I was like, this guy needs to stick around for another season. And like, I do think his death was senseless, especially after that we already saw Steve go through this exact same thing with the Demobats, and they pull him down, they're eating his sides, but somehow Steve survived, and I feel like Steve was trapped by them even longer than Eddie was. And I almost feel as if that was like a last minute death, so to speak, because when he's talking to Dustin, his face looked a little CGI to me. So I wonder if there was like a I don't know, a version of the story where he helps him out. He's injured, of course, but he helps him out. But then later on, they said, "No, we should kill you off." So they had him shoot something else, and they just like CGI'd a new scene in. So yeah, I'm still not over it. I knew he was going, but then I thought he wasn't, and then he went, and I'm just all beat up inside about it.
Well, I was upset when you posted your thing about the out of context with Star Wars, and you showed the body like cut in half, and I was like, is that what's gonna happen to Eddie? Please no. Not that going by bat attack is any better, yeah. But with they get to the RV, they get inside while all the bats are attacking, and then they are going to escape go up and go back into the normal world. And if Eddie had gone with Dustin, he might have survived, and also they could have interrupted the Jason invasion and helped get him maybe out of the way. Maybe not. Who knows? Maybe Jason would have hurt Eddie. But it seemed like, why did you make that choice, Eddie, to stay? He said he wants to buy more time, but buy more time for what? Like, why would he even think there needed to be extra time? As far as he knew, the plan was executed. The bats came. So why do you have to keep them going longer? And so it just felt like, why didn't Eddie go with Dustin? Because that could have helped with Max too. If he had gotten Jason, out of the way, then they could have, maybe Max would have been spared some of her agony as well. And then you had, and then he escapes, and then he decides to fight because of that, because he's jealous of Steve, and he says he runs and Steve doesn't, and so he wanted to be like Steve. So I understand why, like, for him, he needed to make a stand. But as far as the whole picture, if you guys see what I'm saying, it could have gone such a different way, and it seemed staged to make sure that Eddie died. And so I don't know. What are your thoughts, Darryl?
I think, he was doomed to die from the beginning. I think it was written specifically for that. Setting him up in part one, running away from situation to situation, that's the setup for the payoff of him not running away again the third time. That's his, the stand, for lack of a better phrase there. Eddie's one of the best characters that come out of the whole series, I think. And I think, again, the writing and the way that they use tropes is brilliant. And he could have gone one of two ways, and we didn't know which way he was going to go. Was he going to go the Robin way of, we got another, person who fits in that kind of teen pack, so we got another one for that army? Or was he going to go the way of, every other season, which has presented us with one character we kind of get attached to that also dies in that same season? If it's a Barb, or it's a Bob, or if it's an Alexi, they've set us up for this. We get one of these every single season, and it's just unfortunate that this season is the one that we really attach to hard. Barb goes out pretty quick. Bob we're more attached to because it's
Rudy.
It's Rudy, it's Samwise Gamgee. So you're and it's obviously kind of in that same Goonies vein. So they use the shorthand for us to get attached to him there. And then Alexi, he only gets like maybe 3 decent episodes, and he's just a likable guy, so we kind of get attached. But Eddie is there for a good length amount of time. He's the entire season, so you really get time to get attached to him. But he's just still befalls the same fate as every other, one season character in this show. But it was just that whole, is he going to stick around? Is he not? I enjoyed that. It's just a testament to the good writing that all of Twitter was heartbroken when when Eddie finally ate his, and he went out, as far as to your point, Lindsay, about the running, their whole goal was to buy time, to fend off the bats, to buy time for them. Well, instead of running, I can buy even more time for them, and that's just I think that's the thought process that he had in his head, is I keep this borrowed time going for even longer, and I finally get to do something right so I can prove to myself that I can. The decision to me made sense, and it was, and it leads us to, a great heartfelt scene between him and Dustin.
Yes, too bad it was all for nothing.
Too bad it was all for nothing. Those are some of my favorite deaths, man. The big heroic sacrifice that doesn't mean shit. I love them.
What do you mean, Harrison?
Well, they still lost. They
still...
it still went down that it didn't really mean anything by the end.
Vision died twice and Thanos still won.
Yeah. So it's exactly like that. They do all that and then bam, the bad guy still wins. But yeah, it would have been great. The reason that he fits so well, it wasn't kind of like he's there because even if with Billy, if he had somehow been redeemed, he wouldn't have fit with that group of other kids. He would have just been another teenager in Hawkins who is a tertiary character in the story. Eddie was like a puzzle piece that I didn't know was missing with those older, the teen pack, as you put it. So yeah, it would have been great. And if for the first time ever, I hate when characters who die are brought back in another season. It's like, oh, well, here's some magical reason they're back. This is probably the first time I'd be like, 11 just jumped down to the upside down and did her little Rey Skywalker, be like, no, not you either. I'd be like, they came back next and said, this is what happened in between. I'd be like, okay, I'm fine with that. Yeah, that's good. His uncle will be very happy and we get to have Eddie back. Yeah. So
yeah. You did have pretty much, I would argue it was probably the most resonant death of the whole show so far with Eddie, and because we did get so attached to him. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it made sense I guess it made sense for his character because he didn't want to be the guy that ran anymore. But I feel like there were other options. The writers for me didn't write it into a corner enough that's the only option that made sense. I feel like there were other things that could have made sense. And so in order if it was for really going to land, it would be like, there was no other option. He had to die because this was what was destined to be, that it was set up. But there were other paths that could have been taken. But it was okay. I was very sad about it. His uncle has no idea. Now he sort of does know. I think there was one of the things I saw on social media I thought was interesting is people were upset that nobody but Dustin seemed to care of the group. Like nobody really said anything about it. But I felt the same way about 11 in season 1, because I remember when 11 sacrificed herself for the young group, and when they're in that classroom and she disappears, and then they're all kind of joking around, and Mike is sad, but nobody else really cares. And I remember how upset I was, because I was like, she gave her life for you guys and nobody cares, because people were happy that Will was back. So they were excited about that. And there was this one character, which was Mike, who was sad there was no more 11. And now they do kind of the same thing here, where like Dustin is the one trying to carry on his legacy and make sure that he's remembered correctly. And nobody else really says anything, but So that's kind of upsetting, but maybe the rest of the group wasn't as attached to him as Dustin was. I don't know. I wasn't sure why that nobody else in the group seemed to be particularly broken up about it.
Yeah, Dustin was the one that was the most attached. But yeah, I mean, the rest of them just like. I mean, also, you have another tragedy that happens like right on the heels of that too. So it's like, man, you only got so much emotional bandwidth, man. So it's like grieve for the guy that you really only kind of known for a couple of days, or grieve for the town that you grew up in having mass casualties.
Or Max,
there was
being in the coma.
And Max in the coma.
There was a second there when Dustin went back for Eddie. I was like, oh, so it's not Eddie who's going to die. They're going to kill Dustin off. And the bats are going to leave Eddie and just start attacking Dustin. I was like, it was good. They kept going back and forth. Like, okay, who's going to eat it? Who's it going to be? Just stop playing with my heart. But yeah,
I did think it was interesting that Dustin has gotten no care for the leg. He doesn't even have a crutch. He's just walking around limping now the rest of his life. There's no physical therapy, there's no cast, there's nothing. He's just
they were awfully vague on what that injury was. Are we talking sprained ankle? Are we talking broken ankle? Like what was this thing?
I'm going with sprain. It has to be a sprain, right?
Yeah. It's not going to be like a season-ending MCL sprain or something like that.
He falls without the help of the mattress back in the upside down. So that's where the injury came from. But I did think it was interesting. There was there's no cast or anything to like. I'm just going to walk around on this injured leg for the rest of my life. Okay, Max, the thing with Max and that part of the story was they had this plan, but they didn't, the factor, of course, is they didn't know how Vecna was going to react to the plan and if it would be successful. In their minds, they're like, this is the contingency. But he had some of his own tricks and he knew she was trying to hide in those happy memories. But that was another really moving part because you were invested in Max and her character and how she's a tough nut to crack, I would say. I remember watching the scene where Lucas and her are, before everything happens, they have that, sweet scene where they're passing notes to each other about, want to go to the movie Friday. And I was kind of thinking about that, not just Max, but the way that Lucas has grown through his relationship with her, because Lucas was always for me, he was kind of a little hyper and a little pushy, and he has learned how to interact with Max in a way that like he understands her better now and can relate to her, and he's grown in his patience to how he interacts with her. And she's not the easiest person to get to know. She's very protected of herself, and it's been kind of a journey for her to let this group of friends in. And the way they kind of showed that through these memories, how much she treasured these memories with these friends. And so that segment had a lot of impact emotionally, and wanted to hear you guys' thoughts about Max and what kind of transpired for her.
This whole season was rough for Max. I think Sadie Sink is still the MVP of the season overall. She gets the raw deal at the end of the series. That's for sure. I love everything that they did with Max all throughout. If I'm her, man, just let him take me, because I'm not trying to come back to 2 snap bones like that. No, thank you. That's I know what happened to Joe Theismann. I don't want that to happen to me. It was it's that's the number one maybe overall question for me is going into season 5 is what is Max's deal? Some people seem to think that that Vecna might be hiding out in Max. I think she might just be brain dead. I think we have seen the last meaningful interactions that we'll get from Max. Personally, I'm not sure, how it'll all play out, but I think we're pretty much done with what we'll get from her, even though what we got from her already was incredible.
I think, yeah, it was rough watching. Like when I thought 11 was going to save her, you see her arm snap and then her leg snap, and I was like, oh no, she's dead. But then, of course, she gets to live, and 11 brings her back to life, and she's in that coma. And 11 comes and tries to go into her brain to talk to her, but there's like nothing there. It's just all black space, and she can't find her thoughts. And so I thought, and I even said in my spoiler review, I think she will come back. I think if she was going to be brain dead and they were just going to kill her off, they would have did that. They would have just let her die, and it would have been very meaningful. But I do think, because there's supposed to be a time skip coming up in this next season. As you know, all of these high school kids look like grown ups. I mean, Priya Ferguson does not look 11 years old. But I think there's going to be like some kind of time skip, and I think Vecna has a hold on her mind, and he's going to at some point allow her to wake up, and that's your inciting incident for season 5. Like they all come back to the hospital, and they're like, "What's going on?" And they're going to be like, Max is awake. And she's going to tell them, he let me wake up. This is what's about to happen. And now we got to start the adventure over again. He's almost healed. And I think that is what you do. And she, of course, it's almost like she's in a brand new world. Everybody's a little bit older. She gets out of bed and her bones are healed and she's a little bit taller. And it's like Lucas has been there every day for the past however long, 1.5 2 years, hopefully more than a couple months. And I think that is where they're going, this character. I think it's going to be her at the forefront and Will, because they will have the most connection besides 11 to the main villain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there would be little sense in just keeping her alive to be brain dead, if not to bring her out sometime, even if it was instead of the beginning of the season, if it was at the end, she wakes up and is surrounded by her friends and gets that. But I was just trying to think about, why is this so moving to me? Because all the characters are great, but having this be Max's fate seemed just particularly tragic, I guess, because she already had this difficult year and her battles with depression and felt like, she was responsible for her brother's death, for Billy, what happened to him. And she just pushed everybody away because she had that feeling that a lot of people do. Everybody that gets close to me gets hurt. And so the best thing is for me to just keep away from people. And so she had that strength to say, like, I'll face Vecna again. I'll allow myself to, for the sake of having this plot succeed, I will go through this again, and I feel confident that I can overcome this because of these happy memories. And then it ends up being much more than she bargained for. It worked to an extent, but then it didn't work completely, and then there were delays of getting the help she needed. So the other kind of party in this that goes through a lot is 11, and she she escapes the desert and is able to help Max to an extent, isn't able to completely save her, and Hawkins isn't really out of, as you said, Harrison, it was all kind of for nothing. I mean, Vecna is put to rest for the moment, but the price they had to pay was now the Upside Down has come into Hawkins, and you have these 4 splits to the town with that everybody's now able to see this. So they didn't exactly save Hawkins, but they did get to come home and see their friends at the end. But I think that it was good for 11 to get to face Vecna again. They had this unfinished business, even though she had killed Henry before. He just existed in this other form, and she was able to face him again and reinstating with her powers restored. So it kind of reminded me with the Harry Potter series, where you have Harry defeats Voldemort, but Voldemort is still around. He's just in this baby form, where he had this little baby Voldemort. So I thought that 11 also had, and of course she's the central character of the show. She's pretty much the reason the show exists, is because of her. So what are you guys' thoughts about 11's journey?
11 seems to just kind of, with the exception of what happened at the end of season 3, she kind of powers up. She levels up a little bit more and more each season, and then they Iron Man 3, or they kind of depower her for the last little bit of season 3, and then this most part of season 4 is spent getting her back into fighting shape, as it were. And once she's back into fighting shape, it seems like she's at her strongest now. So I think we are now at peak 11. I think she's gone Super Saiyan at this point, and it's time to. I think she's where she needs to be at going into season 5 for a full head-on final confrontation. So it's been interesting seeing this character kind of go through the progression of, I'm unsure of myself. I'm not sure how to fully handle all this. And then she's just, as she's matured, she's gotten more and more control, more and more confident, even in using to be playful at times. But yeah, it's just been interesting to see how she's progressed throughout this entire series. And I've been loving it. I think where we have her now is where she needs to be.
I agree. She has kind of leveled up each season, and she now seems to be at max power or close to max power, because Dr. Brenner even felt like before he let her go that she wasn't ready to face Vecna yet. So I think he felt like she could become even more powerful than she is now. So maybe like the next level of her powers is beyond even bringing somebody back to life like she did with Max. Maybe there's more that she can do. I think we will fully see her in season 5 at peak power, when her nose stops bleeding when she uses her abilities. Once that stops happening, I think that's putting her at God mode basically, and she can do whatever she wants. And I feel also that she's going to come back with a new haircut. She needs to. They cut all her beautiful hair off again. I mean, I know they didn't in real life. I saw that they put that little wig thing on her, but she's going to come back, no nosebleeds, new haircut, ready to kick ass and take names.
New hair, new you.
Yeah.
But if we have 11 at peak and we need to defeat this could be the opportunity for bringing back 8 Harrison and bringing back some more people that have powers to help her.
I do agree. I think, or I hope I should say at this point, I think with what happened in Hawkins being all over the news, I think this will draw the attention of 8, who will come to see if 11's okay. She always said she'd be there for her when she needs her. And I think having somebody who can create illusions, like I said, I like that her power set is different than 11's and Vecna's. So that could be something that could help them defeat him if they can trap him in some kind of illusion where he thinks he's won. And I also think what her mom has some kind of abilities as well. And her mom's still alive. She's just in some kind of comatose state, whatever it is, where she's almost a vegetable, but she can kind of interact.
Oh, very similar to what Max,
Yeah.
Max is fully in a coma, but yeah.
But I think somehow if her powers have leveled up, she will be able to get her mom out of that state and hopefully bring her in to help as well. And even though, yes, she sees Hopper as a dad, I think her happy ending is being with her mom again, completely healed and, I don't know, going off on some other adventure. So I hope they need to bring 8 back. You can't just not do that. She's out there. She has powers. Why not? Even if you don't kill her, but yeah, bring her back.
Yeah. Well, if they don't do that, then it is kind of leave it open to what is it going to take for Vecna to really be defeated and for Hawkins to be safe.
I think it's going to take that combination of 11 and Will. I don't think we see 8 again. I think they haven't thrown it back to her since season 2. It might have been that they saw that, because that episode is the one that kind of got the negative reactions coming out of that season. So I think they're like, well, let's just kind of back away from that point that we had lined up. They're able to, for lack of a better phrase, course correct away from that. Because if they do bring her back in, I wonder how much of the viewing audience is going to be like, where the fuck did she come from? Who was this? Without spoiling her return, which you would kind of have to do on like previously on Stranger Things leading into season 5. If you see 8 somewhere in there, then you've already given away the goat, right? But if you don't do that and she shows up, then it's like, well, that's kind of lazy writing just to have that in your back pocket. That's why I don't think we see 8 coming back. I think it's going to come down to the combined talents of 11 and probably Will doing the supernatural business.
But I think part of the reason the viewing was so low wasn't because of 8 itself. I think it was just because they left Hawkins and went to this other town, and people were like, no, we don't want to see that. We want to see, our group. Yeah. So maybe bringing people to Hawkins would, it might be more receptive, but a little of this, little of that. We don't have to solve it. That's not our job. The Duffer Brothers get to decide. But I think it would be interesting to kind of get extra. I'm not, with how bad this is, it is hard to imagine 11 and Will, just those two, having enough strength between the two of them to bring this to a conclusion. It is promised to be a Return of the King ending. That's the rumor that is going around now. That I don't know if you guys have seen that, but the Duffer Brothers are saying this will be a Return of the King ending.
I wonder if they're talking more about the scouring of the Shire than all of the rest of Return of the King.
Well, I do. One of the things I do think was interesting about this season that I don't think they alluded to before, but is that Henry/Vecna/1, whatever order that you're supposed to say him in, he's actually the final boss. Like throughout the season, they're like, you have the Demogorgon, who's like the foot soldier, you have the Mind Flayer, who's like the Grand Wizard, and then you have Vecna, who's like the general. So you're thinking, okay, it's going to level up to somebody else for the final season. But it turns out all of these things were just Vecna. He was the one who, like, the Mind Flayer is not even real. He just created some spider out of smoke, apparently, and just has it floating around in the Upside Down. Somehow he's controlling the Demogorgons, which is another reason why I think Papa survived. Like, he did that on purpose. He had it injure him, but not kill him in season 1. And I guess he also created that little flesh monster. I don't know how he's somehow controlling the Upside Down. They don't really explain that part. I get how he can like move stuff with his mind, but they don't really explain how he's also controlling these flesh-like creatures and like the tentacles and stuff. But I think that is what I find is the most interesting thing, is that he's the actual final boss, or he thinks he is. It would also be great if it turns out like if he's Shang Tsung, there's a Shao Kahn who's actually been controlling him the whole time. If you know what Mortal Kombat is, that's
yeah. The whole time we think everything's leading up to Vec, and then Will pops out the bush. He's like, "Surprise, bitches! It's been me all along."
Yeah.
Like that's why do you think I have this goofy haircut? I've been signaling it the whole time.
Yeah, or it's alternate timeline Will with the nice haircut. He's like,
the Stefan.
I'm the Will who went to go stay with my dad. Wow.
I also wonder if they're going to bring in this time difference, because they've even made this point again that in the other world time goes slower. So it made me wonder if they were going to use that to somehow go back in time to make something change.
Yeah, I'm when it got to the end of the season, like one of my first thoughts was they've done everything but time travel. So
Or multiverse.
or multiverse, yeah. So if they brought in some sort of wonky time business besides just like we're gonna jump forward, a year afterwards, if they brought in some kind of time distortion, I would not be surprised in the slightest.
I was actually quite surprised by the whole that it was still 1984 in the Upside Down, because that didn't quite make sense to me. One, first goes to the Upside Down, like there's no Hawkins there. Like, how did a version of Hawkins get in the Upside Down? And then
do you remember Nancy says this is the day that Will died?
Uh-huh.
So
some kind of Will connection to Hawkins.
Is it possible that the Upside Down was created that the day, or Will went missing? Sorry, not Will died.
Yeah.
I wonder if the Upside Down was created when Will went missing, and then like
it was just a barren wasteland when Vecna was there, and he was surprised that all of a sudden it turned into Hawkins because when Will got there, maybe that's Will's ability. He can control
maybe the Upside Down there was nothing there before. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it might have been populated when Will was sucked into it, and all of a sudden Vecna's like, "Oh, it's the Waffle House is here."
Yeah, like when Vecna went, it was just like a barren desert with a few Demogorgons walking around, and then when Will goes, now it's like a version of the city he came from. But yeah, like the time travel is weird to me because in season 1, like Joyce was actively, like when she thought her son was talking to her as a ghost, she put up the Christmas lights, and then Will was able to be like, oh, let me do something with these lights. So I feel like anything they did in 1984, I guess, should be happening in the Upside Down. Like there's no people there, but I guess the stuff moves. So I guess we should probably actually rewatch season 1 to see what little trinkets they may have left somewhere that could still be helpful, I guess. I don't know. Like if it's still that time period there, is there another version of Will that's still there?
Oh, you're hurting my head.
Good question.
Yeah,
good question.
Time travel. It makes sure.
Yeah, good time travel should never make sense. Is my is my way to approach science fiction. I am definitely looking forward to a full on rewatch of 1 through 4 before 5 comes out to see what I might have missed or see what clues they might try to hit me with the gotcha with.
Okay, so the last point I wanted to bring up, and then if there's anything you guys want to discuss that we haven't, we can, but I wanted to just touch on The Talisman, which is the book that Lucas is reading. Oh, look at you. It was interesting. Lucas is reading to Max from The Talisman, which is, I believe it's the first Stephen King book I ever read, even though it's co-written by Stephen King and Peter Straub. And it was a neat little Easter egg because that book itself is about, parallel worlds, and there's a person in each world. I thought that could possibly be an Easter egg. And then I was, talking to Harrison about this last night. It turns out that, because I remember there is a movie being made, and it's actually going to be a TV series, and the Duffer Brothers are helping produce the series. So and people have been thinking about this, a spinoff from Stranger Things. It's possible that the spinoff is The Talisman, and that's what they're mentioning. Who knows? But so Darryl, you're reading it. Have you started it yet?
Oh, I read it like 13 years ago.
Okay.
That's an old friend for me, The Talisman, and whatever the name of the follow-up book was as well. It's one of the Black House, I think. It's one of the better King books that I've read. I really enjoy it, and I don't think there's any clues to be had there. I think it's just another one of those if you know it's like the Conan sort of like if you know the plot of The Talisman about a kid flipping through an alternate dimension of his reality that he's in, then it's just kind of like they kind of tied that story in with this story. It's a little, there's been a billion King references or parallels throughout the series. I think that's just all of them the most overt one. They're like, all right, let's just blatantly place one King reference in here for us.
Yeah, I would agree. I have not read the book, but I did read the Wikipedia page last night, and it does seem like a very interesting story. And of course, the fact that they're helping produce that show, it might just be like a little nod to people like, if you know what we're working on next, this is the book you need to go buy. So, and I'm pretty sure somebody's crunched the number somewhere, like Amazon's like, oh, like 10,000 copies of this book were purchased in the past week because it appeared in Stranger Things.
That would be interesting to know.
I mean, yeah. So that's probably what it is. I don't know if they would be legally like allowed to make like the Talisman show a spinoff of Stranger Things because it is like a Stephen King work. I think the spinoff will probably be something more connected to the show, like something they created themselves, whether it takes like inspiration from like Stephen King work, but I think it will deal more with like the world that we're in, like a true spinoff, not like a spiritual spinoff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm excited about it. I love that book too. It's been a long time since I read it, but I remember being very invested in that story. So are there any topics we didn't touch on that you guys want to get into before we close up?
I got one, and I said it somewhere, I think maybe when I was watching the first part of season 4. I said, is this town ever going to know what the hell's been going on in their noses this whole time? And it looks like that has finally come to fruition. So, and I think I made a joke somewhere on the social medias that final season is going to be the whole town of Hawkins versus Vecna. And I would not be surprised if we get maybe not on that grand a scale, but something like the entire town is going to rally behind these kids to help and support them in any way they can. I would like to see that.
Will Ted get off of the lazy boy?
Yeah, that's the one thing that bothers me the most about, especially this season, is those kids. If I have my timeline right, the last time some of the parents saw their kids is when they ran out of the house questioning from the cops and didn't see their kids again for like the rest of the night. And no one really seemed all concerned about that. But it would be nice if the parents, if not the whole town, the parents got to realize just what wild shit their kids have been getting into this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I had thoughts. I want to know what you guys thought about the structure of the season. I like to binge things. I think certain shows are made to be binged. And I think it's okay to have certain shows released week to week. But it's not, if I want to do that, I have regular cable. But I like that it's split into volume 1 and volume 2. But one of the things, and I put this in my spur review, I was wondering, like, what if the last episode is like almost 2.5 hours? Why not release that in theaters as a film? Say we have volume 1, we have volume 2, and then we have volume 3, the movie. Go see it in theaters. And I guarantee you, with as good as this season was, if the last episode was strictly in theaters for like 45 days before it hit Netflix, they would have made a minimum of like $300 to $500 million. Then you could be like, okay, we bankrolled our final season. You give all the actors a little boost, and you've bankrolled like at least the first season of your spinoff just from that. Like, I think that would have been a wiser thing to do. And I feel like that might be something that they do in season 5, because if you can, why not? I guess is my question. So what are y'all's thoughts on that?
I think it's hard for Netflix to get their original content in theaters. Like I think their end is the main barrier, because I can almost guarantee you those conversations have been had. But I think it's just a barrier of getting Netflix originals in theaters, because when they do hit theaters, usually it's like New York, LA, or some specialized, like a few people got to see a screening of The Irishman, for example, in theaters, or Scrubs. There's a screening for that, but it's very, very far and few in between that you'll get to see Netflix content in theaters, which is a shame, because I think that is a great idea.
Yeah, I remember I did end up, even though I said I wasn't going to listen to your spoilery thing, I ended up listening, watching it after all, because I thought, well, maybe it'll help me to prepare for our discussion. But when you said that idea, I was like, yeah, if they were able to pull that off, it would probably make a lot of money. I'm not sure what the licensing would be on it. Like if the Duffer Brothers would be allowed to be like, okay, we're gonna take this episode and we're gonna show it in the theater instead of, I mean, Netflix might have something to say about that. And also, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there's a lot of outrage sometimes that happens when people aren't able to watch things. Like, for instance, we have our lovely Dougie Davidson who's not going to the theaters still, and he would be very sad if he didn't get to watch Stranger Things in the last episode. That would definitely get called out on social media and attacked as being not fair for Netflix to do that. So it would have to be, like Twin Peaks had Fire Walk with Me, which was a separate entity from the series, but still tied in. So they could maybe do something like that. But I don't know that I see an episode of Stranger Things being pulled out as only in theaters. I mean, they could do it for, I guess, a couple weeks or something before it comes to Netflix.
Yeah, like I said, the window's now 45 days. So, I mean... We don't talk about that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I just think it's leaving money on the table. They don't do something of that nature. Because I would have loved to have seen the final episode in theaters with a bucket of popcorn sitting next to you kind folks. So
yeah, except we wouldn't see it together because you go to Charlotte and I go to Raleigh. So, but yeah, but with a crowd of other fans, that would be very fun to like get to see like Eddie jam out on the guitar to Master of Puppets. It would be a lot of great reactions from the crowd. So I could,
yes,
that would have been fun. We're gonna close out unless there's anything else.
He gave her a discount on the bullets. He's like, you buy this.
He'll toss in his buckshot. Yeah. He tossed in the buckshot, y'all.
Yeah.
Greatly.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't touch on Nancy and Steve, and we don't have to. Everybody else has an opinion about that. We didn't touch on Robin and oh gosh, I can't remember her name.
Yeah, I saw your tweet about that. Yeah, she
what?
I think actually that's what they should do. They should get together. Robin should finally get a girlfriend. It's going to be great, and then bam, that's who you take out first. She finally found happiness, and it's snatched away from her.
I did think it was interesting that Robin's the girlfriend she's interested in is Anne of Green Gables in the contemporary Anne series that's on Netflix. So Netflix must have her right now on some kind of contract. But she was
with everybody. Sadie Sink was in a few Netflix movies, so.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys watch this movie with Steve where he's driving the Uber? Did you guys watch that? I guess not. No. He was in a Netflix movie where he's basically like an Uber driver, and he's doing criminal activity to his passengers.
Oh wow! All I knew he was in Molly's Game. That's the last thing I saw him in besides Stranger Things.
Yep.
So.
Oh, I didn't remember. He's in Molly's Game?
Yeah, he was like a trust fund kid who was like gambling too much, and he went into debt, but he couldn't get money out of his trust fund for another month or whatever. Something like that. It was a small scene. But And
Playing
Sadie
a
Sink was
privileged
in that.
guy.
Yeah, she was in some like demon movie where she was like the daughter of the devil. So she's everywhere. She's the one who came out of the season making bank. Her and Noah Schnapp. Is it Schnapp or Schnepp? What's his last name? Schnapp. Those two are making the most money on top. Then I guess you got Joyce. I'm blanking her name right now. Winona Ryder. She was always she was big before this. And then you got Hopper. He's probably third in line of making the money, and everybody else is just kind of Netflix toss me a job. Eddie, the actor that plays Eddie, I think he's gonna get a big step up in Hollywood after this. He's gonna get some roles thrown at him. So.
But will people like him as much without his hair?
Oh, is he British? Oh man. Well, I mean, he did well. I do feel Eddie's look. I think that is going to be like. I think there's going to be a time skip. I think people will hopefully get haircuts and whatnot. I think Dustin is going to be like a little version of Eddie next season. He's going to have like the long, crazy hair, and he's going to be into rock, and that's going to be his deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that Eddie would have been my older sister's type, that she was into like the heavy metal hair with like the curly, the perm guy. Yeah, she loved Metallica and stuff. So she would have definitely had a crush on him. So okay, everyone. Well, we thank you for tuning in to this discussion. If you stayed with us, Darryl, Harrison, thank you both for joining me for this epic part 2 and for sticking with this 2-hour talk that we had. Really appreciate you guys.
Well, it's very good. Yes, please have me back if you feel like it. I love to talk anything, movies, television, Metallica.
Metallica. You guys heard it first, guys, so maybe expect to see these guys back again. Who knows? We'll see if I'm feeling generous. So. All right. And we'll see everyone next time on one of my stories. Goodbye, everybody.